Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hi, this is Justin Griffith with StayLinked Corporation. You're listening to the new Warehouse podcast. And today's safety tip is don't look at a screen while moving. In the same way you shouldn't text and drive, you shouldn't be staring at any mobile device while in motion.
Outdated and bulky, legacy scanning technology continues to drain warehouse efficiency. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible hardware solutions, like WorkHero from Rufus Labs. Utilizing WorkHero's efficiency-boosting wearable scanning technology, mobile device management, and labor management tools, warehouse managers will be able to easily access key performance metrics and improve operations. With their cutting-edge monthly subscription model, you're always provided with the latest barcode scanning wearables, productivity analytics software, on-site redundancies, and 24/7 global support. Superhumanly simple. Make your warehouse team superhuman with WorkHero. Go to www.getrufus.com to learn more and schedule your free demo. That's www.getrufus.com.
Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I will be joined by Justin Griffith. He is the CTO at StayLinked Corporation. StayLinked, they help you stay linked to your system. So they actually help you interface and ensure that your system stays in place and can connect to other newer technologies and bridge the gap between legacy systems. So we're going to dive a little into that. Justin's going to give a way better description of StayLinked than I just did, I'm sure. And he's also going to give us a little background on what is a legacy system exactly, and talk to us a little bit about how their technology helps you attach to newer technology and be able to utilize it without making major overhauls to your internal and your core system that's in place. So Justin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Yeah, very glad to be on here.
Definitely happy to get you on. As I mentioned before we started recording, I use StayLinked in the day job, so I've been familiar with you from like a surface level, but definitely interested in digging in and getting a little more detail on the background of how the technology works and things of that nature. So why don't you give us that better description of StayLinked and tell us what it is you guys really do.
Yeah. So StayLinked is a software company that specializes in terminal emulation. And terminal emulation, for anybody who's not familiar, is that kind of a green screen, DOSy-looking interface that people are used to kind of seeing on warehouse mobile devices for doing data collection, barcode scanning. And StayLinked has a bit of a special feature, that underlying technology that terminal emulators speak is called Telnet, as in teletype network. It was one of the first computing technologies ever to come out. So it literally turns 52 years old this year.
Oh.
And so it has this feature where by being 52 years old, it was not engineered for any sort of modern environment. Like it doesn't fundamentally understand things like wireless. So we developed the ability to run terminal emulation sessions in sort of all sorts of modern environments that allow you to keep connected in the event that totally modern things happen, like you run out of battery on a mobile device or you walk out of wireless coverage or have network hiccups. And that's just not something that most terminal emulators can do. So that's how we got the name StayLinked. And then my role at the company is CTO. I sort of make the technology calls, but overall as a technology company, I kind of drive company strategy and product direction.
Okay, very interesting, and definitely, I can attest and speak to what you just mentioned about how you have network drops and things of that nature, and the StayLinked technology allows you to, when you reconnect to your next access point or whatever the reason is for the drop, you basically pick up where you left off without any hiccups in the system, as you mentioned. It's pretty effective. Certainly, the operation that I'm in, we're starting a new warehouse, so figuring out the proper access points and network configuration and all of those things of the nature. We had a few places where we would drop quite often, and it was good that we wouldn't slow down the operation or have any system internalized errors because of it. So really interesting stuff, and it's interesting, that it's going on top of this 52-year-old system, as you mentioned. So, a lot of times, I guess one of the things is that the StayLinked helps with the legacy systems, as we refer to them in the industry, I guess, right? So, tell us, I guess, what actually is a legacy system for people that may be hearing this term, not quite familiar exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So legacy system is sort of a moniker given to any system that has been around a long time, as in has a long legacy at a company. But it's kind of come to be attached to any system driving a warehouse or driving a company that isn't the newest. So it kind of has this weird negative connotation recently, but by frame of reference here, so terminal emulation or terminal interface applications, by use case, they make up about 65 to 70% of the use case of mobile devices in the warehouse. So if they've got a barcode scanner attached to it, about 65 to 70% of all of those in the world will be running a terminal emulation interface against the legacy system, or sort of that term. So yeah, legacy systems is kind of weird. It's kind of a weird term because it still runs the world. It runs the majority of the world. Every box you ever received, every car you ever rented, every hotel you ever booked, at some point, it's probably touched a legacy system. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting, and it's interesting I guess the percentage you said over there is still in existence, and how it still gets touched so often. And I think maybe, I guess based on your comment there, I'm actually thinking maybe legacy system is, you mentioned lately it's come up a lot. And it's kind of like I would say it's like a negative connotation, but maybe it's more of a selling or marketing tactic of trying to get into a new system, right?
Yeah, it's a narrative, right? And I think that's the important thing. Whenever you have a talk about technology, it's kind of desperately important as a company to sort of focus on or remember that the narratives oftentimes are built around whatever the technology is that is trying to be pushed into the environment, right? So, like I'm a great lover of technology. I'm a great lover in the advancement of technology. Like anybody who loves me will tell you I have a gadget problem, but I think it's one of those things that has had this weird aggregate effect on the industry, kind of calling everybody legacy. It kind of loses a bit of the hit. If every system is legacy, then no system is legacy. kind of thing. Or,
Gotcha.
if we're all laggards on technology adoption, then is anybody really a laggard? So it's an interesting, we could dive in on that all day, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting discussion there, and an interesting point as well made there. And I'm happy to hear that you love technology, because your job is pretty much revolving around technology, right? So you kind of that, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just I love playing around. So we actually have two divisions of the company. We have the core product side, but then we have this other side called StayLinked Labs, and it's purely it's a well padded excuse for me to buy gadgets, just 3D printers and robot arms and all of that stuff, just to play around and get to know technology and sort of how that gets adapted back into the world as it is today, because it's a very tricky thing, technology adoption. There are all of these headwinds or drag or anything on new technologies being deployed. And some of that we're covering today is like, okay, what's preventing everybody from being on robots already? Robots have been around 3 decades, en masse. How come everything isn't automated by now? And there's just a lot of excellent reasons why. Why do I still have a job in a 52-year-old technology? Why does it still run the world? I think it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned some of the robot technology there, and robotic arms and things of that nature. So, one of the things that I think the StayLinked technology helps is to kind of bridge that gap, right, between these legacy systems that we just were speaking about, but getting them to be able to connect with the newer technology or the systems that may be running those robots or things of that nature. So tell us a little bit about how does that work, and how are you able to allow companies to be able to bring in newer technology without doing like a total system overhaul?
Yeah, total rip and replace kind of thing. Yeah. We've been trying, we basically sort of the whole existence of the company has been sort of about problem solving. So, we actually started as a software services company. We were the ones doing the programming and modifications of warehouse management systems. Okay. And sort of our specialty right before we wrote StayLinked was fixing Y2K. And that was a really fascinating evolution in technology, because it was this thing where time ran out on a tech. And if you want any sort of measure of how far people will push it on adopting a new technology, that's a great example. Because even for us, like, what do you think is the latest date that we did a Y2K modernization on an application? What's your guess?
I guess, your mind goes right to 1999, I guess, right before 2000.
Yeah, it was 2003. For like 3 years over the deadline, and so I think it's one of these things where technology, I think it's wrapped up in the idea that just because someone's got to means they're going to, and oftentimes that's not true. So when we looked at terminal emulation, the goal was solve the biggest problem. It's still, by the way, one of the biggest problems that warehouses face. Still one of the biggest drags on productivity, that whole drop session thing. Right. So we solved that using this architecture by basically what we said was the only way to solve all the problems this 52-year-old protocol is going to have in modern environments is to not use it. So we created this kind of thin client model where the device is remote controlling the fragile but important session up on a software that's run right next to the WMS. The goal being that we're now running on the most reliable, most available piece of hardware and software in the whole enterprise. And that if that goes down, you have much bigger problems than your telnet sessions, right?
Right.
But by doing that, it also sort of set us up to solve a couple more problems in succession. One was the adoption of Android. When Android first came out, there was sort of this big push to completely refactor the devices. Get rid of the keyboard, change the screen so they're Gorilla Glass, and you've got a very touch-friendly OS, and so it sort of stands to reason that people said, okay, now we want touchscreen apps.
Right.
And so there was a lot of focus on that, especially over the last few years, about creating touch interfaces for these applications. But again, if we think about where these devices end up, 65 to 70% ending up in character-based or terminal applications. Even something as simple as getting rid of the keyboard, if that's the main source of input for all of these apps, it has these huge, wide-ranging implications. So we're kind of through that phase now, in that people have sort of digested Android to a large degree on the technology front. But now there's sort of these new waves of technology coming in. There's all this automation and beacons and drones and all of these different form factors, wearables, IoT peripherals, all these things. And what we saw was that people didn't know where to start. It was like the gap between, I want to go from where I am to robots.
Right. And
it either meant, it was pretty easy if you were starting a new warehouse and you had unlimited cash. It was like, cool, I'll take robots, right? But most people, most businesses have to start with where they're at, And so when we're looking at all these technologies, sort of the big question is it going to overlay on top of an existing environment? And not just speaking purely on the systems, like will it hook up with the software? That's obviously a very important question. But the environment includes things like the racking. Can I keep my racking and use these bots? Can I, will my users consume the new technology? Are they sort of stuck in how they do it, or are they flexible? Do I have enough turnover that I could adapt new people in? Can I train them, or even something simple as will it survive on my existing infrastructure? Because a lot of times those went in when the warehouse was built or something, right? So there's just a lot of challenges for customers who want to get to know a technology. And I think the sweet spot in the market in general is that, especially given how the last year has gone, it's bred a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds caution. And so people are kind of cautious at how they approach a technology. They want to know enough about it and make a small investment to see a return, to give themselves the confidence to keep investing in it. But there doesn't seem to be a huge appetite to go all in, all the way on any one particular technology at all. People kind of want to still have a future-proof but safe, kind of like a do no harm,
right,
sort of approach. So when we looked at that problem, we were going, okay, how are we going to teach robots to speak Latin? Right? How are we going to teach them how to speak over this 52-year-old protocol? And it turned out to be that the same platform that we used to fix this issue also made for an incredible jumping off point for people to be able to integrate new technologies. Because every one of them, from a heads-up display to, a back-of-hand display scanner or robot or beacons or anything, a lot of times the sales pitch always starts the same. Go in and gut the system.
Right. And
so our pitch was, okay, well, what if you could overlay this on top of the application you want? Just purely try the technology. Yeah. So we did that by creating a product called StayLinked IO. And IO, again, the endeavor was that we would do the hard work of picking the vendors and integrating the vendors, but it would flatten out the ability for an application provider to call into IO, and then we could coordinate en masse, with sort of our intelligence software to whatever you wanted it to talk to. So it would be the translation layer, and the thinking going that StayLinked would be its first customer. If we could make it speak over one of the oldest but most prevalent, most ubiquitous, sort of instruction languages available, that it could work for the industry at large. So that's what we're in the heat of now.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that you had a really great point there. And I've certainly experienced this in my career as well as with, different size companies. And you mentioned how, the initial thought is like, okay, we're going to bring in this new technology. Let's gut the system, right? And I think a lot of times when companies hear that, especially smaller companies that don't have, unlimited resources, like you mentioned before, is it, it's whoa, let's pump the brakes here, right? We don't want to overhaul the system because, we're so dependent on the system, and, this is what we know, and all these different things. And a lot of times, that can halt a project probably, in its tracks.
Absolutely.
In some cases. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so the fact that, you guys are kind of tackling that issue is really a great thing, and I think it's going to make the adaptability of these newer technologies even that more higher, and the comfort level of going after them even more so as well.
That's the hope. I think our industry as a whole gets a bit of a bad rap. Mm-hmm. It has this sort of tinge of being anti-change or, sort of anti-adapting to a new technology or something like that sort of laggard narrative or something on our industry. And I think what we're actually seeing is people and companies who are very rightly adverse to risk. They have good reason to be. And that a lot of the sales pitches for a number of new technologies start with, let's go in and touch the most expensive, most fragile piece of software in the whole enterprise. And that if you mess it up, you could tank a company. No joke, especially if the company has made a big investment in this software, and then you think about what you're tacking on to a company that maybe wants to upgrade. I sort of liken this to the Christmas tree analogy, where if you're a company and you want to add a number of new technologies to a system, you have a conveyor system and autonomous mobile robots and, handhelds and all these things. And it's kind of like hanging ornaments on a Christmas tree, which is fine. Above a certain level, it stops being, it starts getting unwieldy. But it gets really tricky the moment you want to swap out the Christmas tree for another one without disturbing any of the ornaments. Right. You sort of hit the saturation point where it becomes really risky to touch it. And I think that's where a lot of people and why these legacy systems are still so entrenched is that people have invested a great deal in it, but beyond that, they just have a lot riding on it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of systems, not even just software systems that run a warehouse, how they train users, how they're accountable to, warehouse's production and performance. There's just 1,000 things that this thing touches that you have to sort of stay on top of and you're accountable for. So, we want to sort of take a bit of the I think there's a lot of technologies that can kind of come in and be a bit cavalier with that, going, yeah, we'll just touch it, we'll just poke at it. And I think a lot of customers are right to be a little cautious about doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I totally agree with you that it can sometimes break a company. I mean, I've been through system switchovers, WMS upgrades in my career, and it's a crazy time when that happens, because there is so much like riding on it, and if you go, you're down for a day, even it's a lot of business potentially lost, and beyond a day is you're going crazy. It's around the clock trying to get it back up. So definitely, there is that risk. And also you mentioned there a little while back about how you're working with these different companies, I guess, to understand the language that they're putting out to then try and transform that and bring that in. So, I know one company that you worked with is ProGlove, which we've had on the show before, back on episode 128. So I'm curious, who else have you partnered with, newer technologies that you've been working with, and maybe some other ones that are on the horizon in different spaces?
We'll be back after a quick break. You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I think there's so much cool technology and so many new form factors. ProGlove is a great example. You know, there's a whole category now of that type of computer, back of hand display. And there's sort of this big drive in the industry to sort of optimize where the users go to look at their data. And you can see even in the major mobile device manufacturers sort of these changes in form factor where the screen's facing the user and the scanner shoots out the back of the device. That kind of focus on what the user is seeing. So the major manufacturers obviously we're dealing with, we have an exclusive product with Zebra, and we're working with their heads-up display as well as all their new stuff. Honeywell actually has a version of StayLinked, Honeywell Smart TE, and all of their new mobile devices. They have a back-of-hand scanner called the 8680i that has a display. So we're working with them on that one. The ProGlove unit, obviously, there's a number of these guys out in Europe. We have another partner, Nimsta, which also makes a back-of-hand scanner display unit. And Fetch Robotics is kind of the most recent addition for automation partners and robotics partners. But yeah, there's just a number of them, and it's really incredible to see the breadth of different technologies, but also the specialties and all of that. You can understand why, as a customer, you'd have a time trying to decide on one vendor, because there are so many. There are so many automation companies or technology companies that hone in on a very specific industry or very specific use case, and that these people shine in shoes. We're the automation vendor of choice for shoe companies or something. And it's fascinating too, because these companies are also new and they're also trying to get exposure to mass amounts of customers. And so sort of the endeavor to be as applicable to as many people as possible and get in as many customers as possible quickly, that sort of runs headlong into the customer's interest of doing these things safe and slow and in a way that won't risk the numbers they're hitting today. So that's where we see ourselves, as sort of being that translation layer, letting people add a technology and overlay a technology into their environment very quickly, which is good for all the people making the new technology, obviously, because that's where they want to be. They want to be in the user's hands. Or walking or riding along next to the user kind of thing. But then for the customers, again, there's this sort of low risk, low cost investment in a new tech to see if it's right for them. And that's the goal. Give them a tech and let them try it. And if it works, great. Now they've got more confidence to invest more. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, fail fast and try the next one.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good point there at the end. And I'm curious, have you seen where you're partnering with these companies like ProGlove and Zebra and Honeywell, that the customer adoption rate is increasing from prior to when they were able to utilize the StayLinked technology?
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing this, especially now as sort of things are waking back up. I think there's definitely an interest in trying a lot of technology. And I kind of hold this unpopular opinion about technology adoption in general, and that they all have their place. They all find kind of their balance point, but none of them are sort of the panacea of all data collection, right? And I think there's always going to be a place for, voice or a mobile device with a barcode scanner, or, a robot or anything, but that all of these things will kind of complement each other. And that sort of future wave of technology is not necessarily wrapped around one tech, but it's about people being able to customize their deployments around exactly what they do. And it might be a bit of voice, and it might be a bit of robots, and a bit of all these technologies. So I think people are still wrapping their head around a lot of these technologies, and a lot of the technologies are getting their feet under them around a lot of the messaging. And that if you look at sort of the storyline for a number of technologies, they tend to talk about it in comparison to the other people in their space, right? Where, one technology company has way better AI than this other technology company. But a lot of people aren't there yet. They haven't caught up or don't have enough context to make sense of that. And so I think part of our challenge is wrapping a lot of these new technologies and high technology companies' minds around where the users are today, and allowing them to sort of come along with getting the users to sort of come along with the storyline. So kind of not starting with how great the AI is or how much data can be gotten out of this. But here's the concrete value you can have in the very short term. Right? Here's the absolute concrete result that you can tie directly to the technology you tried. Right. And being able to give them reinforcement about making an investment, or at least solidify that there was a causal effect between, all right, I tried I tried wearables, right? And I saw an increase of 10%.
Yeah.
So I can keep going on wearables until I stop seeing an increase. Right. So that's part of the challenge too. It's not just about being able to be innovative for innovation's sake. It's about being able to sort of make informed, steps toward a better tech, and being able to reinforce that with good data. Right.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point. It's kind of you don't want to have the shiny object syndrome, right? You don't want to just go after technology, like as you said, for innovation's sake, right? Just to do it. You want to have some type of informed decision behind it, and have that data to prove the concept, and make sure that's the right fit for your operation, and makes sense financial wise as well. So that's a really good point, and I love that with this technology, it allows you to test the waters kind of with different technologies and prove it out without making a huge investment. Obviously, there's still some investment at some point, but you don't have to totally overhaul the system, as we mentioned, all those things. So, I'm curious as we wrap up here. What would you tell a company that is concerned about doing a complete system overhaul, but is interested in adopting new technology? What advice would you give them?
I think framing is very, very important. The bad news is that you do have to innovate. You do have to improve, right? Every year you should be working on being a little better than you were last year, right? For most businesses, that's why they're in business, is to do that, right? But the good news is that you don't have to be the most innovative about a thing, right? Because there's graveyards of businesses littered with the names of companies that were the most innovative and put everything in and on the line on a particular technology. So I would say treat it more like a muscle that you have to build over time. If you want to try a new technology, try a little of it, and go slow and give your company the time to sort of catch up and consume it and get the process for adopting a new technology in place. So you don't have to go from zero to hero, or go from never having lifted weights to bodybuilder, and do these sort of, like you said, a complete system overhaul.
Right.
Focus on new technologies that you can kind of drop in and see a very, very clear return on a small investment first.
All right, great advice, and I appreciate all the insights today, and also, telling us a little bit more about StayLinked. I certainly got a better better idea of what it fully does now. Aside from, I know it keeps me connected when I drop,
Good.
which is a great thing too. So it's cool what you guys are doing, and it's really good for the industry. I think, as you kind of mentioned in there, it gives not only the customer, the end user, a chance to utilize new technology, but it also gives these newer technology companies a larger chance of getting to more customers too, because they're able to utilize that technology without super large investments in time and money. So Justin, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. How can people find out more information about StayLinked?
Yeah, StayLinked.com, or look us up on LinkedIn. But that's a great place to start. There's signups for both the core product and our new product, StayLinked.io, on the page.
All right, great. And we'll put links to that on the newwarehouse.com as well. So, Justin, once again, thank you for your time on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.